Hello, Gamecock fans. Hope you're doing well. Happy Sunday. This is JC Shurburtt here with you from Coffee, thebigspur.com, Chief Sports, South Carolina, inside the Gamecocks show. You can rattle them all off. I think you guys know who the big headed guy with the now shaggy ish gray looking hair and the beard is. Time for a haircut, JC. But wanted to pop in real quick here um, with a special podcast, special video podcast, videocast, whatever you want to call it, and talk about Kosci Barnes, who's committed to South Carolina last night. Kudos to Alex Jones from thebigspur.com for covering that event, driving up to Greensboro, uh, braving the Charlotte traffic that he was worried about last week. Good coverage there. You can check that out on thebigspur.com. Use code the show 50 if you'd like half of off an annual membership to TBS. It's hopping right now. We're about to get ready for the season. All the preseason scoop and coverage right there. So Barnes commits. He was the welcome home, the missing welcome home that Shane Beamer had tweeted out. Um, there was some mystery a little bit to that because Amari Thomas had decommitted, the running back that was committed to Florida State from Florida State, and then on the heels of the Tristan Lewis commit, where he claimed an offer and turned right around and committed to the Gamecocks. You know, it kind of logic or habit or recent trends would dictate it was maybe Thomas, but Barnes had an announcement set for a long, long time and was coming up. You know, my understanding is behind the scenes, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Rutgers were all players at various points. Rutgers was probably the team we didn't talk about a whole lot, but Miami made a big push there at the end. The Gamecocks had to hold the Hurricanes off, but he is a Gamecock and is committed. He's a high 3-star according to 24/7 Sports, high 3-star according to 24/7 Sports Composite. His commitment, believe it or not, moved the Gamecocks up 7 spots in the 24/7 Sports team recruiting rankings, up to number 22 nationally. It's still among the top 25 classes, has the least amount of commits. You have some schools that have a little more. Oregon, I think, has 15, LSU has 16, and there's Carolina. Everybody else is way up there. Some are double the size. Georgia has 30 commits, so the Gamecocks are at 14, so almost half that. So we'll see kind of if the Gamecocks get more in the boat, what kind of ranking they end up having at the end. But when it's that big, if it's 4 or 5 guys, 4 or 5 prospects, uh, because of the way the formula at 24/7 set up, you can kind of be in the hunt or even ahead if you have more of a quality class. But if you have half the amount of commits, you're not going to be. And I think that there's a non-mathematical logical reason for that. I mean, obviously the more players you have in a class, if you're evaluating the whole class, the more your odds are higher that class makes a bigger impact on your program. Not always that way. Not always that way. And I think the 2024 class, which was small in size, will end up having a way more significant impact on the South Carolina program than maybe 2023, even though 23 had Lenore Sellers in it, and it was a larger class. Then you got the transfer portal these days, so different schools have different strategies. It used to maybe be, unless you were short on scholarships, a 5 alarm fire if you only had so many commits. Like, what are we doing? Where are we going? That's not the case anymore because you just chill, you try to flip guys, and you hit the portal. That's just how it goes these days in modern college football. Back to Barnes, he did commit to the Gamecocks. One of our 24/7 Sports analysts, Andrew Ivins, compared him to Miami corner OJ Frederique Jr. Now, OJ's shorter than Barnes. He's about 6 feet tall. He played at St. Thomas Aquinas. I believe was a starter as a redshirt freshman last year for the Canes on, a horrible defense. I think we can admit that, but he's got a bright future down there with Miami, and certainly a good comparison, in my opinion. But just me looking at the film, the first thing that stands out about Barnes is his ball skills. I think he can track the ball, high point the ball, knows where it's at, showed good instincts. Sometimes guys have good hips. Sometimes guys can cover. uh, what happens is when the ball's in the air, sometimes they can't track it and they lose it, and that's when. And even the best corners that happens to from time to time, but guys that don't end up being very good at this position that are quote unquote bust, you watch them, on some of the film, even when they have like pass breakups, sometimes it's because the quarterback throws it short. Sometimes they get a little lucky. Yeah, they put that on their highlight, but you can tell they're kind of all over the place, like one of those inflatable dancing Gumby looking things that car dealerships put out there when the wind blows. They kind of look like that, real out of control. He looks in control when tracking the football. The length obviously is something that you measure at 6'3", long armed, all that. We spoke about that many times. Torian Gray is looking for that, but it's noticeable on film because here's the thing: sometimes the quarterback doesn't throw it short. Sometimes the quarterback's right on the money, or maybe a half foot behind the receiver's running. Got to step on you. When you have an extra couple of inches, and all it takes is a flick to maybe knock the ball away. That length is very valuable, and he shows that on film. There's a couple of times where he was beaten. A perfect throw would have probably been a touchdown for the other team. It's a little behind. He reached his arm out there, dove for it, went parallel to the ground, knocked the ball away. That's why coaches love length when they can possibly get length. He has what I call baller speed, and here's what I mean by baller speed. Here's a new term for all of you that have been following me for a long time, because I was thinking about how to describe it today. So a lot of times, defensive players at the high school level, even defensive backs, when they get the ball, you see this a lot with linemen, even in college, but take linemen out of it. Linebackers, defensive backs, primarily safeties, corners, nickels, ends, tackles. Like, let's just limit it to that. In the instance that they get the ball, and you don't always, in high school, if you're a good corner on one side, those throw in the opposite. You don't really always get stats. You always don't get the opportunity because you're doing your job and shutting the other side of the field down. They don't ever throw to your side. When they get the ball, they're not like running backs or receivers or quarterbacks or centers that handle it every play. There's this element of surprise that you see, and the run after the turnover gets very sloppy. You've seen it before. Guys will just fall down. They're real awkward. Again, at the college level, it's mostly when linemen get it, but you see some defensive backs that do that too. They're just kind of, oh, surprise. What do I do now? What do I do now? Baller speed, as I defined it, and this is new, so bear with me here, is when you see a player, when he does get a chance to get the ball on defense, he's right there. He becomes a running back, breaking away to the end zone, full speed, no hesitation, no nervousness, nothing. And I like those guys, And look, in fairness, I've seen players develop it through time. It's something that usually happens with experience. So for a young guy, the guys that usually bust or that aren't quite as good at defensive back, through the years, I've just seen it. They're very kind of sloppy with the ball. Not this guy. So that's good. So that's something that could tell you that maybe this guy will work out. We all know that recruiting rankings are just projections, and sometimes the projection is wrong. But I think the baller speed part of it, that's a guy that is comfortable playing football, is comfortable with the ball in his hands, is comfortable making plays. He does need to add strength. I think he's a willing tackler in the run game. Wasn't a guy that shied away or anything like that. But he needs to get stronger. He's kind of long and lean right now. But if you folks have been looking at social media and seeing any of the, I guess, before and after pictures of some of the Carolina players, Darren Usher, who's been with us twice now and twice called Luke Day and the nutrition and strength cat staff cheat codes. Kosci Barnes, one of them that will benefit with the cheat code because he's got the frame, but obviously, like most high school players, he's got to come in and get stronger. You can tell that when he's playing the run. Maybe gets a little high sometimes, so tackling, but I mean that all comes out in the wash. I think that There's probably a time where O'Donnell Fortune was not a very good tackler, and last year he was an elite tackler at corner. Let's hope it doesn't take Barnes that long. Let's hope Barnes ends up being that wide away, being that right away. Sorry. I mentioned the baller speed. He does play fast. He is fast, quick, good in space. I watched his feet a little bit on the film. That's important too for any corner. That checks out. And the reason sometimes, if it were just a safety, yeah, or just a safety. Let me back up. That was a dumb comment. Just a safety. Corners are more rare than safeties. 6'3" corners are way more rare than safeties because the the trend normally is put your bigger guys at safety and your shorter guys at corner. I don't know why that is, because the receivers are 6'4". Um, Part of that reason is bigger guys don't have the hips. You got to have loose hips to play, and feet, soft feet, loose hips to play corner. That doesn't mean you don't need those traits at safety. It's just a different position that requires different skill sets. And some guys can go to safety and corner and back. And there's been a few corners that have gone to safety and couldn't get it and had to go back to corner. I mean, we see that all the time. But that's what separates the two, I guess, when you're evaluating and projecting, is our hips and footwork. And I check those out because when you're talking about him as a cornerback, there's a little bit different type of athletic ability that you're looking for. He said Torian Gray told him he could also play some nickel, but corner primarily there. That nickel position is very versatile. Obviously, you look, and if Jelani Kilgore, who's going to start at nickel this year, was going to play another position to be safety, but they're talking about Brandon Cisse playing there too, probably as a rotating guy, and he would be a corner. So it's either or at that spot. And I think the hope is, because I've heard a lot of recruits this time around talking about that. Jelani Kilgore had such a good year at that position. It's kind of like the spur used to be around here. I mean, you can sell that in recruiting to players when you say, "Hey, this is our kind of glamour nickel position that we're going to be famous for." Uh, and hopefully they are famous. Hopefully, it was disappointing when we got to 2014 and the spur position went from a line of great players to maybe not so great there for a while. But the nickel is the spur is the nickel. It's a fifth DB on the field, but he needs to be able to play the run. So yeah, I think his skill set fits good there as well. Again, with the length and things like that, it's very intriguing, especially given his footwork. Fourth player from North Carolina this cycle, South Carolina. Of the 14 they have committed, 10 are from the Carolinas, 6 South Carolina, 4 North Carolina. So that's a Carolinas heavy class. I think that gives I think that's a good sign. You guys have heard me talk incessantly about the need to recruit North Carolina at a high level. It's a good sign. I think if you think back to last cycle, they got three pretty good ones. And so now you got 4. And we'll see maybe if they can end up with 5 or 6 by the time all said and done. But 4 is a good number considering, South Carolina almost was getting shut out in North Carolina there for a while. You got a big one from Virginia coming up too. 5-star Darius Gray is going to announce August 22nd. Gamecocks, LSU, Tennessee, and some others. So the fourth one from there, Greensboro, gosh, hasn't always worked out with players from Greensboro through the years. Carolina's gotten, and look, I'm doing this from memory today. I think the Stadnick twins were from Greensboro. Clayton Stadnick played a bit. Mike Wyman was from Greensboro during the Muschamp era. He was kind of a one and done, just did not work out. Just wasn't as good as people thought. But one of the top players in the history of the program is from Greensboro, North Carolina, and that would be Todd Ellis from Page High School in Greensboro, North Carolina. So uh, this kid goes to Grimsley. Barnes goes to Grimsley, but Ellis went to Page. So there's some Gamecock history there with Greensboro. I'm sure there's others too in the last 40 years. I don't have everything in front of me and didn't research it. But this is yet another player that fits the Torian Gray mold. Again, I'll go back through it. You got currents, and Barnes and KJ Johnson, all those guys are over 6'2.5" in this class. And then Daniels 6'4", Leach 6'2.5", and Hatfield 6'3", 6'3.5" in the last class. Oh, and I said I was wrong. I mean, or I had an omission. Tristan Lewis, who is being recruited as a safety from Greenwood, who committed last week, high school quarterback. He's 6'3.5", 6'4". So a lot of length, and length is great as long as you got the lower body to go with it as well. I've said several times, I've seen coaches make huge mistakes going with length or size or bulk over speed. Maybe they think they can teach them to run, or the guy runs 4.7, they're gonna run right by him. It doesn't. It's not, and it's unrealistic to think he's going to jam everybody at the line of scrimmage all the time. I've seen that happen here a little bit a long time ago, but as long as they check out athletically, yeah, you take all the guys you can. And Torian Gray, who I'm going to talk about on the next episode of Coffee, Torian Gray has a track record since before Carolina of figuring it out with guys like this. And he just doesn't look at guys. I mean, like Brandon Cisse is about 6 feet tall. Vakari Swain's about 5'10", 5'11". Judge Collier's 6'1", but it's not like he says no to great corners that aren't maybe 6'3", 6'4". So that's good. But yeah, the class went up 7 spots with this commit. So that kind of reinforces what I was saying about, the team rankings, with Carolina having the lower number of commits. That's kind of what's keeping that overall number down. But good day for the Gamecocks. Next up on deck, I mentioned Darius Gray at the end of August. I believe August 8th, Amari Thomas will announce his commitment. Gamecocks are looking strong there. So we'll have more coming up. Stay tuned to right here on the Inside the Gamecocks podcast channel if you're listening on podcast. Also, if you're on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and share. And Chief Sports South Carolina tomorrow. We'll have coffee in the morning. Already have given away the topic. And then we'll have the show. The morning show. John Whittle is in on all things with Mike Morgan, with Jamie Bradford. Then Phil and I will be along with the show. Sports Talk on the Chief Sports app with Phil Kornblut from 6 to 8. The Late Night Gamecock show will be on Wednesday. If you're catching this Sunday afternoon, this special Sunday afternoon, by the way, which is when it's being released, 8 tonight, SEC Sunday night with Craig McMichael and Rob Williams and their special guest today, Drew Crabtree, who covers Ohio State. You have a Big Ten SEC battle there. Well, they should probably call up Kurt Signetti and get him to chime in, right? And then, and then also Brad Crawford, who you guys know from 24/7 Sports, CBS, The Big Spur, Inside the Gamecocks, The Morning Show, the show. He's on. Brad's one of our favorites, and he'll be along too with the guys to talk a little bit about the SEC. SEC Sunday night. It's on YouTube. It's on X. It's on the Chief Sports app. So be sure to check it out. 8 Eastern. All right. Once again, Kosci Barnes, Greensboro, Grimsley. Gamecocks beat some really solid teams that know what they're doing at defensive back, most of them. So hats off to Darren Usher, Torian Gray, Shane Beamer getting another one out of North Carolina. J.C. Shurburtt, this has been a special report on Kosci Barnes. Holla at you soon.